Oh, that's not right. Let's see if I can get this started here real quick. 1 second. Okay, and I can share the link here. And I go over here. Oops. Okay. And then I paste that. I believe. Let me just make sure real quick. Yep. Okay, we are in business. So, sorry about that. Good morning, guys. My name is Simon. I am with Trade Informed Coaching, and this is the market preview for 8/4/2020. Okay, so I posted already the review of the zones. It's recorded and on the YouTube channel. You just have to watch it. And for those who traded overnight, Xavier, how'd you do overnight? You should have, if you were trading, you should have nailed that short. It's set up perfectly. I'll go over it in just a second. Quick legal notice and disclaimer, if you'll read that real quick. Basically, past performance is not indicative of future results. This is for educational purposes only. I'm sharing my trade plan with you in hopes that it makes you a better trader. However, my trade plan does not fit for everybody, right? Everyone has their own psychology, their own rules and limits and limitations, both psychological and financial, right? So make sure that when you're following me, you take what you like, you leave the rest. Great job, Xavier. Good job, man. So anyways, that's my 2 cents. So just to go over and make sure you're not trading money you cannot afford to lose, and don't follow me blindly. If you like my process, learn it. I'm happy to teach it. But don't follow me blindly. It's a hard way to make a living, right? So we're going to go to the 5-minute chart here real quick. And if you'll see in the review I covered, I said, look, last night, I said the easiest places for shorts and longs, right? Best longs would set up at the minimum underneath here. Hold on 1 second here. That's funky. Yes. There we go. Here, I don't know why I have this yellow line here. I'll go back and look in just a moment. But here, for shorts, here and here, the two locations you want to be above. For longs, here and underneath here. Now, why is that important? Because if you'll notice, if you thought it was short and you try to short through here, it swept the whole range, right? And then here's the prior day's point of control, the blue line, that little blue area, right? So you can see in Asia, that's just chop city in and out, right? And the reason I don't like to trade in here, sometimes it works great, sometimes it trades straight through, sometimes it's resistance, sometimes it's not, sometimes it holds, sometimes it doesn't. It just kind of sucks as an area, right? And that the best key locations were actually that white zone, right? And the yellow zone's up above. So you see we came right out of the white zone at 32.71 3/4 and we rotated up. Additionally, going with themes that we keep in the room, right? We want to get to areas where traders are stopped out. So this is prior day's high from the RTH, right? So you've always got to get in the mindset of what everyone else is thinking in terms of where you're looking for a trade, right? So if you'll notice, right, if you were trading and you shorted anywhere up here, where are you going to put your stop? You're logically going to put it right over here. You'll see in Asia, they couldn't make it up to the high, right? They cleared this little area, but all the big stops have to be sitting behind here. Come up, take out all the stops, and then remember, if you shorted up here, you can clear the entire value area. Gets easily traded through, right? That's a, hey, good morning, Peter. How are you, buddy? What do you got? Cool, thank you, sir. So if you think about it, right, the idea is if you get location up here, right, is that you want to try to sweep, if you can, leave your trailer so you can sweep this whole area. And where did it go from? Well, there was no anomaly up here, but it came all the way back down to the anomaly down here. So what does that look like? Since I've already covered the zones and what the profile looks like, that video has been posted. That video has been posted on the channel, and I posted on StockTwits and Twitter along with members. It's in the stream, so you can go look at it if you like. So now I go from this chart. What are we looking for on the actual setup? All right. So I did not take it in ES. I did take it in NQ. So here's 2 a.m., right? So see that line right there, this 32.93.50? That's approximately an hourly stop. Here I'm going to translate over to my hourly chart, right? So actually, this line right here, let's replace that. Here we go. If you look, in addition to the locations, prior day's high, here's your hourly stop, and there's another hourly stop right in here, right? It's really tiny. I'll make that really big and wide, right? So those are my hourly stop locations, plus the daily high, right? Obviously the hourly high and the daily high are coinciding. So now let's go put all the pieces together, right? So first of all, I don't have to get, the best setup is if I get set up above that hourly high, but I don't have to get set up there, right? So first, I know that I have this big wave over here, which means before I hit my high, this is my last stopped out seller. For those of you who are new in the room, I know that's an odd concept, right? I know that's an odd concept, but that is exactly where we want to see is we want to see sellers get stopped out on pushes to new highs, right? So now we have a challenge here. I know I've got to make it below this location to break free, right? So sometimes the short sets up on the left side, sometimes it sets up on the right side. So see this push right here, we came over here and we made a new high, right? So this is what I was looking at. This is right on London Open. And on London Open, they pushed to a new high, right? Now, in addition, now you have the algos firing off. So what do we want to see when we get to the top? We want an arrow up, right? And then, so the arrow up represents an algo, and the blue algos or the double arrows represent the strongest, highest odds. But we don't want to see the pushes down, right? On top, we know that someone's firing really hard to the downside, but that's not uncommon to see when a market starts trending up and going to the upside, right? What we want to see is actually someone get to the high and push up. And we have 3 examples of that. 1, 2, and then we get this blue one right here, which is just a beauty, right? So that blue algo contains a ton of energy. It's not easy to form that bar, okay? And it has a ton of energy. So if you look, as we come up to the high, we now have a new stopped out seller. He's shifted right over here. But we're always looking for the latest and greatest, right? So the one right before we made the high is actually this guy right here. Okay, so I'm going to remove all these lines so you can see it clearly. And once you have the pattern down, it's a lot easier to recognize it in real time. So these orange lines, these are all coming off that hourly chart and 5-minute chart I just showed, right? So this guy right here, this seller right here, was my last seller before the push to the high, right? Now I have orange triangles, right? Fractal up, fractal down, and arrow up. So now what do I have? I have a combination of a stopped out seller, check mark, that's a big plus. I'm extended over the prior day's high and out of value area, check, right? I have a fractal up, fractal down, check, and I have an arrow up, right? So as soon as I close underneath this guy, right here, so I can draw a line right underneath, and that's as close as I'm going to get to a straight line with this. And then the first negative bar, which in my case my bars are pink, with a point of control underneath, which is the blue line, right? That is the short entry, right? So now you got to keep up with the sequence, right? So what's normal? If this right here is my last stopped out seller, it is very common to get him backside tested or close. In this case, they used a fractal, but I would expect him to backside to at least attempt to backside up into this. What they did in this case is, see how they did the fractal up, fractal down, blue arrow, they backside tested this guy instead. Okay, which is fine, no big deal. They were going to backside test one of those two. So here we are at 2 a.m. At 2:21, that's where your short, 2:20, that's where your short triggered. And then you could have added and or put back in right here at 2:32. Also notice that there's a lack of any kind of long setup within that structure as we push down. So the way that would have worked is if you took it here, so if you entered here on a limit, right, meaning a stop limit, you backside tested, so you could have gotten that trade. Thank you. I saw those, Peter. I'm going to go look at those as soon as I'm done here. 32.91.75 approximately would have been your entry. And the best stretch on the first push down, right, would have been 32.88.50, right? So that's still not horrible, right? 91.75 to 88.50, that's a reasonable scale, right? But then if you look, right, the market likes to be structured. So off your high to your low, market then does what it always does, which is it makes a 50 retrace, right? And off that 50 retrace, that was your place. If you took a scale, you could add it back in your scale. Remember your stop, as far as I'm concerned, the stop should be at the high, right? So it was a 91 against a 97, which is a reasonable stop, right? But what was more important here, what was more important in this whole picture was zooming out, right? So now you've got the entry and you've got the trade. And what you're thinking is, hey, if I can get my risk off, which I think is totally legit, you come back over here to this chart, hourly chart, and you're like, hey, I'm short right over here on the edge, right? I've taken out all these stops, right? And I've got this value area here. And this value area can get slipped through. And this is a great example of where when people have a difficult time, they try to trade in this value area, and they just get whipped. Well, really, they didn't get whipped till starting right here because it was all right till the market closed. So approximately right here. But this is all Asia, right? And this is just whip city. So you're sitting patiently. You're like, I'm not doing anything in here. But you get out of here and you find a trade, right? And then once you get below here, I'm going to be, and particularly below the prior day's low again because we swept the whole range, you find a trade. And then it came down to the anomaly, which remember from a profile perspective, our focuses are primarily on the zones, the yellow zones, the white zones, and then for members in the room, we know what these purple and gray lines are, right? Which are also potential key areas. So now watch how the market's set up on the other side. So now you're going to come down to that. I do not know why I have a yellow line there, so I'm going to go see this really quick. This is driving me nuts. Why do I have a yellow line here? I have a yellow line here because there should be no reason for this yellow line. It's just sitting here. Remove it. So 32.80, please get rid of it. There's just nothing there. Okay. There's a volume build here, but from a profile, from a TPO perspective, there's nothing there. Right? So I just made a mistake. No big deal. Okay. So once I'm over here, right, I'm going, hey, I at least want to get below 32.84.50, right? That puts me right over here in this area. Let me erase these lines again. $32.85. There's 84.50, right? So notice as this is coming down, okay, so look at the bottom of the chart. If you're short, right, there's no way you can get above a stopped out buyer over there. There's just zero way. Your stopped out buyer is all the way back over here because we're flipping now, right? We're looking for longs. Your stopped out buyer is all the way back over here. There's no signal. There's no fractal up, fractal down. There's no arrow down. Nothing is telling you to get long or even cover your short through here, right? Come all the way down. We're going to get down to 32. So the next logical area, because there's no zone there, is 32.76. That sits right here. That is 32.76 and a quarter, prior day's low, right? Now scoot right across. Now there is no stopped out. There cannot be a stopped out buyer over here. This does not, the only time this has a difficult time is if we V-shape out of here, and I don't need to catch the V's. I catch enough of the other that I don't have to worry about it, right? And now I can just scoot over. Okay, so I'm looking for a buyer to get stopped out in this process. So my options are this guy doesn't get stopped out. Not yet. This guy doesn't get stopped out. Not yet. This guy gets stopped out right here on this wave. So I can highlight that, right? And now I'm going to go through the checklist. I was not up at 3 in the morning to be trading this. Okay. Now I can go through the checklist. I know within this I've got a fractal up and a fractal down. So I'm going to make that bigger so you can see it. So I know if I get a positive bar with a point of control above, that's actually a long setup, right? Then I come down again, and within this fractal up, fractal down, I want to show you this, okay? So within this fractal up, fractal down, so I've stopped out a buyer now, and I get a fractal up and a fractal down right over here, which means with a super bar, see that's a triangle, and two triangles, a purple arrow and a yellow, there's a lot of energy. They really tried to shove down quite hard there and failed, right? If I close above this, so I want one of two things. I either want a clean close above this, right? And then in this process, by the way, I still haven't stopped, this is still my latest and greatest stop out, right? I haven't stopped out anybody else. So if I close above this now, if I'm going to follow a process and I have no idea how this worked out, this bar right here is my long with the point of control above. It's a positive bar with the point of control above. My stop, right, so that's 32.81. So I have to choose one or two stops. This is my stop down here. That's my hard stop plus a point. That's a big stop, right? From 81 down to 73. I wouldn't take that, right? I'm either going to put my stop at 76, a point below whatever this low is. So I'm going to put it at 75, 70, 75, 75. Or, so I have three choices here, right? I'm either going to cut size, right? I'm going to cut size. Or I'm going to take my 50-60 back. Right, because we're getting caught in a dilemma here. So here's the 50-60 back area. Okay, and the way you cheat on that is, see how the algo is fired with fractal double arrow up? I'm going to target this POC all the way back over here. See those 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way back in there? I'm going to cheat and try to grab those. Okay, but what I really want to do is figure out a way to get my stop 1 point behind 73.50 so I can survive. Okay, and this is where the trading gets difficult. You got to be honest with yourself. You can't go, I'm going to do 32.83 and use a 5-point stop, because all that's going to do is stop you right into the 50 retrace, right? So you have to go, if I can't afford the stop, I'm either going to shoot for the 50 retrace, the 62 retrace, or I'm going to go, look, I can afford 5 points. So my stop has to be 72.50 and 77.50. I just hope it gets there because that's what I can afford, right? That's how you set that up. But what you don't want to do is go, geez, I'm going to take it all the way up here and hope it survives, because you're just going to get the stop, and then I'm going to guess is it's going to push, right? Nope, and it didn't push. So let's go through this real quick. If you took that long, right, depending on where you took it, but if you took it here, so now you go back in your books, right? Go back on your books for a second. If you took it here on the long, the best you could have done, let's erase this real quick. if you took the long here, the best extension you could have gotten was 81.50 to 84. Only 2.5 points. Not exactly impressive, right? Before you got stopped out, right? If you took it back here at the 50 retrace, which was approximately 77, then you had 77 all the way back to 83, 6 points, right? Or if you're realist, if you did it like what I would have done is started small up here, realistically, because I know my trading style, I'm just aggressive. I'd have taken it here, right, at this 81. I would have added back towards the 77, and I would have used the low as a stop. And then in the process, so what you want to look at, so see as we were coming up here, you ended up with, let's see if this stopped anybody out. This was your last stopped out seller, right? That was actually just a tricky sequence at 5 in the morning. It just didn't want to hold. It wanted to go down it just wanted to make it down to this anomaly down here at 71, right? And sometimes it does and sometimes it misses. So there's actually a pretty good likelihood, even if I would have added back here at the 77.50, again, I wasn't up to trade this at this time, but even if I added back at the 77.50, odds are I scaled out, right, and left my stop over here. Best case scenario is if I'm think about how I would have actually traded this, I would have ended up with either 0 or slightly negative or down on this trade, because I would have pushed after that push down. I would have pushed to get a 50 retrace back up towards 32.88. I just know myself well enough. I would have gone 32.88, 32.90, somewhere in there, or bounce back to. And what we ran up against here, if you look, is by the time this set up. So this is where you balance the trade out, right? See how we're right in this area right here, and we're just bouncing right along the prior day's low. We haven't gotten below 32.76. So the problem is it pierced below the 76, but by the time the long set up, we'd already moved from 73 all the way up to 83, and the problem is we slammed right into value area low at 84.50, which is why that trade did not work, right? But you could have said, hey, I think we're going to come back to the 88 to 89, and that's fine. I probably would have taken that. I probably would have gotten stopped one way or the other no matter what I did. And then as you roll over here, right, and you come back into the low, right, here's your stopped out seller again. Stopped out buyer, excuse me. That's your stopped out buyer. All right. So now you're looking for fractal up, fractal down. Now, here's where it's important. See, after this fractal up, fractal down, this is where you want the down arrow to appear. That happens on this bar right here. If you get a close above here with a point of control up, that's your entry. If there's not a fractal on the bottom of this, oh, there is. Okay, good. So now what you want to do now is it's formed this fractal up, fractal down. Your stop comes back down here. Xavier, I'm going to assume you got to be long somewhere between 76, and I'm going to assume you used maybe the 50 retrace possibly. But somewhere in here, that's where you've got to be an entry. So your entry has to be somewhere between 76 and 73. Is that correct, sir? Maybe I lost Xavier. It is like 3 in the morning where he's at. So anyways, that's the setup for the long, right? So Xavier, one last piece, right, that's important to remember. If you're long right now, right? Oh, Xavier's typing. Go ahead. I want to know where you took the long. What was the entry? Okay, great, perfect. So 75 and a quarter, that's what I figured. So you've got a 3-point scale, so it's important to remember, right, when we get to the open, right, we're going to form this hourly bar. Right? So this hourly bar will close in 3 minutes, right? It is highly likely that we dip right underneath it, trap back in, and then the push to the upside. But the trade up there where you took everyone out was right over here. So one other thing to keep in mind for today, guys. See this consolidation? There's no zone here per se, but there is a huge number of hourly stops back over here that took place on Sunday evening. It's right here actually. At 32.54.75. You definitely, and I believe that's one of Peter's areas as well. Peter, let me double check with that. He just sent them to me. Peter has 93.75, 59.75, and then 505, then 505.75 below there. So that 59.75 Peter has right in the middle of this. I'd love to see a sweep. You want to add that 32.54.75. I'd love to see a sweep underneath this, trap the hell out of sellers, and then pop us back up towards 71 or even 88 if it gets out of hand enough. And then remember, we've been straight up in the profile, right? And yesterday everyone was talking about how we had a long side breakout. I kind of smell a rat, personally. I don't think we go straight up, but that's not here nor there. So there's your second trade. There's your 74. That should be your scale area in here, somewhere in this location as you're approaching this 76. Hold on one second. Pardon me, I apologize. You're inside, so there's two ways to play that now, Xavier. Either you hold that 76.25, you don't get underneath it, right? And you push for the 84.50 and then the 88.89. And what I'd be doing this morning, since I'm not in position right now, which means I'm trading against you, I'm either hoping for a push below 72 and whatever this is, right, 72.25. We have 1 minute till that bar forms. So I'm hoping for a push below 72.25 or below 71 to tag an initial long, and then if it really gets sloppy, below that area. But I'd be using this opening strength to scale that trade. Just saying, that's me. I'd be using the opening strength to scale. So at any rate, we know exactly what we're looking for, right, guys? So let's just get to work and make some money. I'm going to leave the room open for a little bit. Back into the prior day's point of control for NQ. NQ is currently down 11. ES is down 7. And now you just see if it holds that prior day's low, right? But boy, does it seem like those guys are asking for trouble on the... and then the whole goal is to find the fractal arrow up, stopped out seller, etc., and get below them. So right now below 11.12 roughly, 11.13 would be the setup on NQ. ES doesn't have a short setup. There's no stopped out seller here. He's all the way over here to the left. Nice trade, Xavier. Excellent. Peter, did you catch the short overnight? I thought it set up so beautifully. You're right underneath that value area low, that 84, Xavier. It's 84, then 88, 89. Those are the two targets. Again, just no sellers on the horizon so far. You have to get below 32.79 now. And no short setup yet. Savory, did you get your scale off, buddy? That was a good trade. 75 to 81 is not bad, considering. Close underneath here, right? Close underneath 32.79.50, right? So your entry will be roughly 78. Stop will be up 85. So let's go through our process, right? Are we at an hourly stop out? First question, yes. We're above this location right here. This is an hourly stop out location right there. So I've gotten above the hourly stop out, right? This will be a closed fractal down, fractal up, arrow up, right? Now we close underneath. Stop would go at roughly 32.87, right? So if we get a point of control underneath, I'll do half and half. I'm going to short half here and add back on the 50 retrace. Okay, what am I targeting? Down to 32.72. It has not triggered yet. I need a POC underneath 32.79.50. NQ is not set up for me yet. And that's fine, right? If we're going to sweep this area, I'd just assume let them sweep it, right? So now we have another fractal up, down. Again, I'm going to adjust a little bit and go for a POC underneath here. Again, half and half will be my plan. I want to make sure I have some skin in the game here. Again, is that my ideal short location? No, it's all the way back up here what we had last night, right? So, two things. When I take this will be with a scalp mentality for a push down to 72, right? Not trying to destroy it and make it go all the way down. And technically, I hope that it'll sweep all the way through here and set me up higher. Just FYI, NQ is not set up short yet, not at least to our process. And nor has ES. And it's still the first half hour of the day, so all of that's good. Look at that, no short sets up, and that's perfect, right? Because it does not cause us a penny. There's no bias, just let the trade set up. Or between 84 and 93, right? So now you got to decide if we hit that 88, 89 quarter, do you want to take it inside the prior day's value area, right? So that's a two-sided, two-edged sword, right? I'll just wait to see if the trade sets up outside of the value area. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to trade that 84 to 93. Now over 93, Yep, I'm good. This has been the same story every day, right, with the drive up. So let them drive it till they're exhausted. It's okay. This is the part of the market that sucks. And by the way, the people who just keep buying and holding long, right, I have no problem with it, but they tend to get smoked once the volatility goes two ways. So let's just let it be. The 85.50 was not divergent. Thank you, Peter. So see here, so NQ is a perfect example of this, right? I don't want to short NQ. Right, so that's right now. So see how someone tries to short? This is fine right here, right? But once you're inside here, if your short is setting up inside, just like it is in the S right now, the potential to sweep this whole range, right? It's not that it doesn't work sometimes. If you look at it, there was actually a trade, right? So if you look for people who shorted that POC right there, 1135, right in here, it skated a little bit above, and then it did roll all the way down for a halfway decent trade, right? So it was actually a roll. It didn't set up for us, right? You didn't have fractal up, fractal down with the arrows inside. That was close, but no cigar, right? Rolls all the way down. It didn't set up long either. But now that I'm inside this 3284, excuse me, 11021, which starts down here, right? Anywhere you chose to try to short in here, just an ass kicking, right? So let it go. You're looking for now above 1168, 1172, and then the piece de resistance would be that 11091. Remember, we're not even outside the first half hour yet, so long way to go. And it's August, and it's the slowest month of the year usually, so we're going to have to just sit there and hunt it. Thank you, Ripper. So NQ has not reached the hourly stop outs up above, right? So now you got to make a strategic decision. ES is not set up short at all, right? Here's our last stopped out buyer. Seller, excuse me, right here. So we have fractal, we have an up arrow, we need a fractal up, which means this would not trigger off short right now until below 32.78, which would be fine with me. It would be outside of the 84.50, but the stop would suck. So let's hope that it sets up on top here. $87. Thank you, Peter. Peter's divergence is really good, guys. When he says that sets up, he's having his first divergence, prints up here at 87. I don't have the setup beyond that. I actually wondered if I should drop to a 4-tick bar, but I don't want to. I'll stay on 1 1/4. It'll open up sooner or later. I would really like one more push here into the top of the hour because I still don't have a stopped out seller on top on NQ or on ES. And I wish ES would just go ahead and tag at 88, 89.25. Be done with it. Might. Let's see if I can just get him to push one more time. Up. We don't have any arrows up near the high. See that, Peter? Usually you'll get that when they start to exhaust themselves. That whole process from this morning sucked. It just didn't set up. Well, I'll take that back. It did. It's 750, but it didn't set up at 830. All right. Oh boy, just I need a stopped out seller up here. I think I just got it on NQ. Okay, I've got it on NQ. I've got a stopped out seller. Here, I'll show you. Stopped out seller. So if I can get a negative bar with a POC below 1055.87. Let me just make sure I'm in an area here where that sounds correct. I am. And I'll attempt to take it the other way. I prefer higher at this point, but that's fine. I have fractal up, fractal down, huge support bar there. If I close, so normally I wouldn't point out any NQ trades, but it's setting and the ES isn't. So if I get to close below I take it back. I need to close below here. Unless it resets to the left. 1152.50. And then you would target back to 1140.75, then 1121.75. Right, lower volatility, so NQ is going to offer the better volatility. When VIX drops, NQ tends to offer the better trade. When VIX rises, ES tends to offer the easier trade in terms of execution and catching it. And then my next project will be to turn it to CL. But, right, it would have been nice to catch the long or have a long to capture, but not a single short is set up all the way through here. We're not guessing. We're not like, oh, I wish, X, Y, and Z. Really simple. We just stopped out everything up here on NQ and on ES, right? And we're getting into the larger stop locations on the hourly on ES, I think. Really, what we wanted to do is peek over that 32.93. So let's see if we can do it. It's only another 5 points, 6 points. Let's see if we can get it. And then we'd want to target back from 93, back to 89, back to 84, and possibly to 76. But boy, they just turn those machines on and they let it grind, don't they? So now since you've stopped out everything under the sun, the setup would now come at, on NQ, we would bump it to a close with a POC below 11.05575. And there's no way to get a long up here. We're not going to chase it. So the lack of the dip in the US session kind of sucks. I guess this is where they talked about all the excitement of day trading, huh? NQ swept the freaking range. $94 makes sense. Peter. Trader's trying to make that 88 be the short. I will attempt NQ below 11.05575 if gives me a chance. We have a left shoulder and a right shoulder setting up there. I actually hope it doesn't set up. I'd like to see ES sweep all the way over to like Peter said 94 area into this value area high. Prior day's high. This is the 50-60. You can just see it on the retrace, right? So we usually they stopped out all the 50. They stopped out all the 50 guys, and now they're into the 62 retrace, which also is aligning itself just underneath the PSC. So they've taken out everyone who shorted the 50 retrace, as they should. I don't think anyone expected us to sweep. Well, I guess actually we've been sweeping the hourly range the whole way through, right? So I guess so. Taking out the stops at the 11.068 area right now on NQ. And guys on YouTube, I'm sorry, I'm going to kill it now. It just didn't set up this morning, not yet. So if you'd like to visit the room, email me, tradeandperform@gmail.com. It's in the description of the video. And wow, this is one slow ass August day. So we'll see if it picks up in the afternoon or later this morning, one of the two. Thank y'all for joining. I'm going to kill it for now. Have a great day. Trade smart. Don't blow up your account. It takes a while to learn, right? There's plenty of money there if you learn your process. I will talk to everyone later.